What is up, love, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to be talking about how to rest without feeling guilty. Now, I want to go ahead and say a big thank you to my girl, Christina, because she slid into my DMs and was like, if somebody has a podcast episode on this, I feel like it would be you. And at the time, I thought back to my first podcast I ever had, which, I was like, I could send her that old episode, but it's like, nah, I feel like as somebody who has just grown and developed, I have so much insight to provide. So I wanted to do a new episode. Now, with that being said, let's jump into the blend of the week before we get into, the better things to talk about, right? So this week, my go-to blend has simply been St. John's Bush as a tea and really just sipping on that. I'm very much so interested in exploring how this specific herb transforms not only my cycle, but my hormones. You have heard me talk about this time and time again, and it's because right now I am hyper fixated on exploring herbs from the Caribbean specifically that we can also get here in the States. One of the things I've noticed in my own body recently is that I am gravitating more to tropical things and more like ITAL lifestyle, which if you've never heard of ITAL, it's basically a lifestyle of like the Rastafarians. I mean, I personally don't smoke any herb, but I do like to drink my teas and I do like my tropical fruits and vegetables. Now, one thing I do struggle with is like, you're not supposed to eat anything with a face, but personally, I still like my things with faces, such as shellfish or just fish in general. But I've noticed my body has been feeling a lot better when I am eating more pescatarian style and very like hearty based. So with that being said, that's kind of where I'm at in life with what I'm eating, but also the blend I have been enjoying has just simply been St. John's Bush. And then, of course, you guys know my tried and true red raspberry leaf tea. I swear to you, I'm one of the first people who put people onto red raspberry leaf tea in 2020. And ever since then, the one that I recommend has constantly been sold out, but I digress. So with that being said, let's get into the better part of the episode, which is how to rest without feeling guilty. Now, the way I'm going to format this is in three very key parts. So first, you have to know the difference between sleeping and resting. Then from there, you want to know where you are in your cycle. Obviously, I want you tracking your cycle, but your cycle will tell you when to slow down and when to speed up. And I think sometimes we can rationalize rest better when we understand our physiology and our biology, right? And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to really not how to meditate on it, but really how to understand where the guilt is coming from, because I have a very, very sneaky suspicion that it has to do with success or productivity. So with that being said, let's delve into the first part of this episode, which is knowing the difference between sleep and rest. Now, one of the things I find interesting is we often talk about the role of sleep in our society, but no one talks about resting. So obviously, quality sleep is critical so that we can feel good, right? But resting is more than just sleeping. Resting involves your whole being, not just your body. So, when you were younger and maybe you were talking to, like, I can specifically remember talking to my grandma, but I talk to my boyfriend like this, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just resting my eyes. And I used to like shrug. I used to do the same thing with my grandma. She'd be like, I'm just resting my eyes, right? But rest can actually restore your health and enhance your performance and help you feel truly well. The difference is actually in the state of the brain. So you can actually rest as you're listening to this podcast right now. Your eyes could be wide open and you are in a state of rest. You could be reading a book and you are in a state of rest, right? Because you're very present and calm in your body. And that's the difference between sleeping and resting. Sleeping, you're unconscious and you're not actually present. Resting, you are conscious and alert, but you are present, right? So I think that's like a very interesting thing to just take a subtle note of, not because you have to, but because you want to. The second thing I want to talk about is knowing where you are in your cycle. Now, this is something I have known for quite some time, but there is literally a time to give and a time to receive in your cycle. There's a time to go and a time to slow down. And I know if you're listening to me right now, you know what phase you're supposed to go and what phase you're supposed to slow down. But let's revisit it, okay? So, the start of your menstrual cycle is menstruation. That is a time in which you need to be in receiving mode and resting mode. That is the time biologically, okay, physiologically designed for you to chill. That is not the time for you to do and be everything to everyone in the same capacity. Right. And I want to say this because I understand what it's like to have kids around now. And so kids quite literally always need something. Even if they're sleeping, they wake up being like, hi, good morning, I'm hungry, And so it's hard to kind of wrap your head around maybe not being needed. But in your menstrual phase, it's simply receiving and being okay with that. Think about it. Your body is shedding all of the nutrients, all of the things that it needs so that it can refuel. Sometimes you have to let go so that you can readjust your grasp and keep going, right? Have you ever had to do that where you had to let something go so that a new chapter could begin in your life, where you had to cut somebody out of your life so that you could, get to where you need to go, where you have to release? That's what your body is doing in that menstrual phase. And so because of that, your brain needs to rest. You are physically letting go. So now you emotionally and energetically need to also let go and just rest. Okay. In your follicular phase, as well as your ovulatory phase, that is the time for you to speed up and for you to give. We know there's this rise in your hormones, and we know the uterine lining is building back up. So that is the time that you go. Okay. I don't need to get into these details with you all. If you need the ins and outs, there's two things: either go back to the start of this podcast or take one of my courses where we go in depth. But I know you know the importance of going during those times and mirroring the energy of your hormones. So I'm not gonna tear you on that one too long, okay? Well, let's talk about the early luteal and the late luteal phases. That's basically, essentially, it feels like 11 to 14 days of time where you need to be resting, right? Why is that? Because your body is preparing to give, give, give. Whether or not you're trying to conceive right now, once a month, every month, the body biologically prepares to give. It prepares to feed another life, even if the egg has not been fertilized by sperm. It is in your body. So your body says, well, we're about to give a lot. So we need to actually be in receiving mode before we start to give. Isn't it incredible how our body is hardwired for giving and receiving? I love it. I'm so obsessed with it. But in your your early luteal phase, as well as the late luteal phase, you simply need to rest. Because once your body realizes the egg hasn't been fertilized, it's going to say, okay, well, now I need to shed that uterine lining. So I have to get ready to get rid of a lot of energy. I have to get ready to get rid of what's no longer serving me, right? That's the physiological aspect of resting. It is in your blueprint. in your DNA. It is hardwired into you as a woman to rest. So we have these 2 weeks of go and give, and 2 weeks of slow and really go with the flow, right? Now, not only is that there, but I think it's important for you to remember what your hormones are doing. Okay. So, in the first half of your menstrual cycle, the dominant hormone is estrogen. But in the second half of your menstrual cycle, the dominant hormone is progesterone. And just so we're on the same page, estrogen is your give and go hormone. Progesterone is your rest and digest hormone. So again, when we're looking at this from the physiological perspective, you're hardwired in the second half of your cycle to rest. Okay. I think you get the point. So I'm not even going to keep hitting it home on that. I think you get it. The girls who get it, and the girls who don't. So with that being said, let's move into the third thing. I want you to meditate on why resting is hard for you. As I prefaced earlier in the episode, there's a really good chance that it has to do with success or productivity. More than anything, it's not even really productivity, it's about success. And a lot of people say that success is relative, but I actually believe success is very subjective. And I think it's important that you know the difference, right, between relative and subjective. Okay. So the quote is success is relative. That means it depends on something else before it can be evaluated. Whereas for me, I believe success is subjective, which means it is actually left to the individual to evaluate. So when you think about it, in our society, we have a lot of us. I know I definitely experienced this, but it was you go to high school, you graduate high school, you go to college, you get the good job. Once you have the good job, you buy the house. Once you buy the house, or better yet, for women, I feel like this was how we were kind of geared. You go to high school, you graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate from college, you get the good job, and maybe you get the apartment with your friends or by yourself, and then you get married, and then you get the house, and then you have the kids, and then in this very methodical way, right? That's how you knew you were successful. That was also how success was kind of defined in the 1950s, with the exception of college, because I don't think college was that big thing in the 1950s. But if you look at the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was this very methodical flow of what success looked like. And at that time, success was very relative. However, from, I would argue, probably 2000 onwards, success changed, with the rise of the celebrities in a different light, the rise of the influencers, the access to information. Success has actually become very subjective if you're a mentally tough person. Okay. Now, I have not talked about mental toughness in a long time. And if you have never heard about mental toughness, you should read the book. I believe it's called Relentless by Tim Grover. Now, if you don't know who Tim Grover is, he was actually the mental conditioning coach for great athletes, such as, and he did mental conditioning and I think just regular coaching outside of the mindset stuff for athletes such as Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he's a phenomenal guy and ultra masculine. So if you're not somebody who can truly handle ultra masculine alpha energy, he may not be your cup of tea. But if you're somebody who can handle that and have an open mind, you would chef's kiss. But anyways, so if you're a mentally tough person, you basically establish what success is going to look like for you and you keep going for it, right? That's why I say success is subjective. It's left up to you as an individual to evaluate. So if you find yourself really struggling to rest, I want you to actually do some reflection and say, why do I feel like this is so hard for me? Am I feeling like I'm not enough in this area, or like I need to do more in that area, or I have to show up? I'll give you a prime example. I have been feeling the pressure to really create more content so I get more exposure, because the more exposure I get, often when I get more exposure, that means I'm making more sales, right? But I had to fix my mindset and realize that like need to be seen wasn't serving me because I wasn't feeling fulfilled, right? I wasn't doing quality work. I wasn't operating out of excellence. And you might be like, Berri, that is insane. No, you need to like crank out more content, crank out more content so I can burn out again. I left corporate America the first time I did it because I was burnt out. Why would I do that in the career I've created for myself? That don't even sound right. Girl, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So like, look at where you feel like you're not measuring up, or where you feel like you're empty, or where you feel like you're not doing enough, and reevaluate that for yourself. Redefine what success is going to look like for you. So I'll share with you how I've redefined success when it comes to my career. First and foremost, I'm not trying to be everything to everyone everywhere. So now if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I post literally Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes Saturday. Why did I do that? Because at least I can be consistent and feel good there. Number two, I've decided that I'm not focusing on growing on social media, but rather refining and almost nurturing. So what I mean is I'm focusing in on really refining what makes me excited to do and post, and also what my community, you, right? What you like from me. Not only this, but nurturing. For a really long time, you all have been asking me to share more about food and nutrition for each phase of your cycle. I have really pushed back on it because I'm just like, it can get restrictive and I don't want that. But I need to also find this happy medium of I'm sharing what I'm eating anyways, but also you get to enjoy it with me, refining and nurturing. There's a season of growth and expansion, and there's a season of refinement and almost retraction, but for the better. Not only this, but I also have to identify my personal capacity. So I have the capacity to manage my personal Instagram. I can have the capacity to manage the Optimize Your Flow Instagram, but I would use that with my personal Instagram. Okay. So like, inviting somebody to post. Not only this, but I had to refine the back end of my business so I didn't feel bad for not showing up every day. Not only this, but I've had to refine the way that I partner with brands and who I'm partnering with. Why am I doing this? Because for me, success is subjective. It's up to me to evaluate, not up to the vanity metrics or really just always the bottom line, at the end of the day, the numbers of dollars, followers, or whatever else. Again, I had to do this. And if you find yourself having a hard time resting, this might be your sign for you to do it as well. For me, I feel the most successful when I'm happy in my relationship, when my inbox is zeroed out. God, nothing is better than a zeroed out inbox. And when I know what is in the pipeline. And to know what's in the pipeline, I have to have a plan or be following a plan. And I have to evaluate success on my terms. Because if I'm evaluating success based off of, let's say, Alex Earl or Kiki Palmer, I love Kiki Palmer at the moment. Like, she's just having a whole it girl moment. But if I'm evaluating my success based off of them, I'm never going to feel successful, right? So that's why success is subjective. And if you find it hard to rest, you probably need to reevaluate your success. Okay. So with that being said, I also want to give you a quick permission slip. If you need to rest, you're not going to be forgotten. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there. Now, with that being said, let's move into the best practices for adrenal fatigue. Now, I'm not sure I've shared this in a really long time, but when I first entered the health space, I entered it because I was told at 23 years old, choose between your career and your health. That was crazy for me to hear. Actually, I was 22 turning 23. I was fit to be tired when she said that. I was like, girl, don't do that. Don't say that. Miss me. So with that being said, talking about adrenal fatigue is like a very personal thing for me. And if I knew then at 22, turning 23, what I know now at 29, my gosh, I probably would have stayed in corporate a little bit longer. Okay. So, first, in terms of proper hydration, of course, having like 3 liters of water, having your coconut water, but more specifically, drinking the Orange Dream smoothie. Now, I have posted this specific smoothie recipe on my Instagram. So if you want this recipe, go get it. Okay. It's a cup of coconut water, 2 Thai bananas, but you can use regular bananas, 4 mandarin oranges, in a cup of frozen aloe vera. Okay. It literally tastes like an orange creamsicle. The reason that I'm recommending this is because the benefits of bananas, Thai bananas and oranges together unmatched. So oranges, the mandarin oranges, actually regulate the production of cortisol and adrenaline levels. So it helps with the production of progesterone, which many women are actually deficient in. Again, oranges regulate the production of cortisol and adrenaline levels, meaning they can increase it or decrease it based off of what your body needs. Thai bananas are really a great source of magnesium, which is it's a mineral that's often depleted when your adrenals are overactive. It's also a cofactor involved in over 300 bodily processes. Okay. Frozen aloe vera really does act as an adaptogen, and it helps the body adapt to stress, right? You guys know me. We're stressing less, we're living more, and that's why Mary had a little lamb, okay? And then coconut water. You know, I'm obsessed with coconut water because it has electrolytes like potassium. It also has calcium, manganese, antioxidants, and amino acids and cytokines. The adrenals need all of these to recover, as do every other process of the body, basically. So that's why I recommend that. Now, for remineralization and supplementation of the body, I actually, I thought I was going to recommend to you all something like ashwagandha, but honestly, no. I want you doing molecular hydrogen. Okay, so the hydrogen molecule is the smallest molecule that exists, and it really does serve as a very powerful antioxidant within the body. Due to its size, it's actually able to cross cellular barriers and absorb easily in the body. Our body requires the right balance of free radicals to promote antioxidant activity. Hydrogen immediately provides the body in neutralizing free radicals and oxidative stress. By doing this at a cellular level, the body can actually maintain homeostasis and slow premature aging. Okay? Basically, what I'm saying is the adrenals being overworked is causing you to age faster.